Thank you very much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Let's get into it. Although I did well on my GCSEs, there are still many mistakes I made going into year 11, especially in the first few weeks. In this video I want to cover those mistakes, so hopefully you don't end up making them too. I've timestamped everything down below in case you want to skip to any particular section. I think the first mistake that I did was being overwhelmed by all the content. Now, doing GCSEs, you're most likely doing 10 or 11 subjects, and you're gonna have to revise for all of those, and there'll probably be formal exams for all those subjects. That seems very daunting, especially at first when you have so much content and what seems like so little time to cover it. But honestly, it's not the biggest deal. I feel like as you progress throughout the year, doing lessons, doing homework, doing end of topics tests, as well as your own revision, it's quite simple to cover all that content in a decent amount of time and still have like plenty of time left to do your own revision and to do lots of prep before exams. I know this was such a big issue for me. I actually ended up making a retrospective revision timetable. If you want to check out my video for that, it's a timetable where you look back at what you did, and from there you can figure out what you're going to be doing in the future. So for this, you would write down all the topics, and then you would write when you revise that topic. So you'd put the date in when you revise that, and then over time you would fill in loads of dates of when you've been revising a topic, and then it's super easy to figure out that you can revise maybe chapter 2 on this day because you know that it was like 4 weeks since the last time you've revised it. I think this really helped by just having a kind of map of all my topics that I have to learn, all the subjects I have to learn. It made it far less daunting for me. Even in mocks, I had one where I just kind of broke it down further by only including the topics that would be in our mocks, and this just made the whole experience a lot more enjoyable and a lot more manageable, rather than just like having this kind of preconceived notion in my head of that there will be loads of content in GCSEs and I won't be able to go through all of it. Next mistake I didn't do a lot of, especially even throughout the later parts of the year, was using the specification. There's a reason the specification exists. It's to show you what you need to know and what you don't have to know. Having an incredible understanding of the specification means you can efficiently and effectively revise the topics you need for your exams. Now, I don't recommend printing out the specification because it's really long and there's some parts that don't apply to you, but having kind of a copy somewhere, maybe in a folder, in a Google Drive or something like that, that you can just access at any point is super useful. I'm obviously in year 12 now and I'm doing my A-levels, and I'm always using the specification. Whenever on a lesson I have the specification up. When I'm doing, you know, Anki flashcards or something, I always have the specification up because there's so much content for A-levels and there is a fair amount of content for GCSEs, to the point that you need to know what you shouldn't revise. And I know especially for my school, teachers sometimes waffled and went on about stuff and made it seem very important, but it wasn't even the exam because it's not on the specification. The specification is your friend and you should be using it well. Tip number 3 is to start making your resources early. I go on about this all the time, but you really should start making your resources as soon as possible. If you're in year 10 and you're thinking, oh, how can some of these tips apply to me? This tip applies to you. I would personally recommend starting to make your resources such as flashcards, notes if you like doing them, or any other things like mind maps as soon as possible, as in like year 10 time. But if you're in year 11, it's no big deal. I didn't like make my resources in year 10. I started doing them in year 11. So it's honestly not the biggest deal if you haven't. Just start now, start within the first couple weeks. For me, I actually wrote paper flashcards for the beginning of the year, but then I realized using an application like Anki or Quizlet is so much more useful in the long term. So I decided to switch to that, and it paid dividends in the long term. My only regret with that is that I wish I'd started making those resources earlier, because it definitely would have made my job a lot easier and made sure that I didn't have to revise as much as I did, because, you know, I would have to catch up by making these resources for earlier chapters that I didn't do. So make your resources as you go along, try to do them ASAP, try to do them within the first few weeks, or if you're in year 10, try to start doing them now. Moving on to tip number 4, and that is finding an effective study method. Now, I have loads of content on this channel about revision and how I revise, but some of those may not work for you, and that's fine. But you need to find that study method that works for you as soon as possible. I kind of dilly-dallied a bit too much and didn't find that I loved Anki and past papers until like January time. I wish I'd, you know, figured that out sooner. So within the first few weeks, now's your time to experiment. Now's your time to try out what methods are working for you. See what kind of results you're getting, you know, using other study methods that I might have recommended. Because figure out a good study method as soon as possible. One of the most important things, if you're using an ineffective study method, one, it will waste time because you're not getting as much value out of those study sessions as you could be if you're using maybe something like active recall, where you could revise for an hour, but it'd be the equivalent of maybe doing like 3 hours worth of notes. Personally, I used Ali Abdal's course on Skillshare to help me understand how to use active recall and methods like that. But there's, like I said, there's so much content out there to help you. I say this all the time, but if you've been living under a rock and you don't know what Squarespace is, it is the best way to create a website in 2021. You're probably wondering, Udoka, why do I need a website in 2021? Why do you not? Having a website is invaluable for your personal brand, and nowadays everyone wants to set up their own business, and having a website would be perfect for that. But you may be saying, oh, I don't have any like experience in computer science, I don't know how to use HTML or CSS. Simple to do, but gives you a beautiful looking website in the end, something that people would love to see. I know it would be useful for me to have a website, especially for my YouTube channel, or if I do upcoming blogs in the future. That's just the best thing about Squarespace. It makes doing something that was previously very hard and only reserved to a set few people super simple for absolutely anyone to do. If any of this sounds interesting to you, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your website, head to squarespace.com/Udoka for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The next tip is not putting enough effort into my end of topic test. In the beginning couple weeks and months of GCSEs, I don't think I put in as much effort as I could be into those end of topic tests. I prepared for those end of topic tests like they were almost real exams. I think by doing that, it would have put less pressure on me when I'm in an actual exam, because I'm used to kind of putting that pressure on me for these end of topic tests. It would have obviously made revision in the long term a bit easier, because you know, you're doing those like almost real tests in class and they're giving you real exam questions. So putting in more effort for those is just invaluable. I had friends who like didn't do any revision and used the excuse like, oh yeah, I wanted to see how I do without revising. That's not good. I would recommend putting in as much effort as you can into those end of topic tests. Not the mocks and things like that, but just those little chapter tests that you do at the end. Put in as much effort as you can for those, because it will make it a lot easier when you're actually doing exams. I mean, 2022, you're going to be sitting in real exams and it will be like that for the future. So put in effort, because you need to get used to being in an exam situation and having like loads of pressure on you. The sixth tip I wish I'd known when starting my GCSEs was not developing a routine soon enough. Developing a routine is incredibly important and needs to be done ASAP. According to science, it takes about 27 days to form a habit. So that's a decent chunk of time. I think during GCSEs, some of the most valuable habits I formed were working out and like just running and doing fitness, because that was doing wonders for my mental health. It made sitting down and studying a lot easier, because I wouldn't have like as much energy because I would go out on runs and things like that. Another habit that was great was when I woke up in the morning, I didn't go on my phone straight away. I see a lot of videos where they talk about that and they say like, oh, buy a fancy alarm clock, buy like a, I don't know, like a digital alarm clock, whatever. You don't have to do that. They're expensive. Just go ahead and try not to touch your phone. For me, I would just swipe across the alarm and then flip my phone over as soon as possible so I don't look at any notifications. But that habit was just great. It meant that in the morning I could get up straight away, go brush my teeth, get changed, and I would be sitting down and doing Anki. It would be so simple. It would work great on weekends, and it's just a lot better for you if you're not going on your phone the first thing in the morning. Another habit that I developed later in the year was revising as soon as I got home. By just coming home and straight away doing work, it put my head in the right mindset to start doing revision. You know, instead of going home and relaxing straight away, even if it's just doing a little bit of work for like the first 5 minutes, you don't have to do like a 3-hour session as soon as you get home. Like, I get it, you're tired, but just coming home and like going to bed straight away or watching Netflix for a bit, it's just not good for you. It's not putting you in the right mindset to do work later on. My penultimate mistake when doing my GCSEs was trying to do it on my own. Now, I did this pretty much all throughout GCSEs actually. I've only recently stopped doing this. And by that I mean, when I didn't understand something in lesson, or when I was kind of unsure of a concept, I didn't ask the teacher. I didn't always ask the teacher. I mean, I sometimes did. Definitely could have asked them more than I did. And I just thought, okay, I'll just go look at it in the textbook. I'll just go watch a free science lesson video, whatever. That doesn't work all the time, especially when it comes to things like A-levels and further in life. That won't work all the time. It's all well and good being able to teach yourself the content, but having a teacher, teach it, is literally their job. They're going to be able to explain to you better. You're actually going to be able to understand the content rather than watching a video, reading the textbook, where you're probably just going to be memorizing the concept. And understanding is a lot more important than memorizing, especially when it comes to exams and later in life when you're having a job or something like that. If you have a question, even if it's so stupid, please just put your hand up and ask the teacher. Like now for A-levels, I ask my teachers everything all the time, and I don't regret it. And a lot of the people are like, yeah, I had that kind of same question. Sometimes someone else does. I'm like, I had that exact same question, I didn't want to ask it. So trust me, if you sound stupid, don't let it bother you, because you're going to be the one doing well in your exams. And my final tip, and kind of leads on from the other tip I just said, would be to pay attention in class. This is very, very obvious. Try your best to pay as much attention as you can in class. I know for GCSEs and in class you have your friends, it can be fun to talk with them, but really put the effort in to listen to the teacher and try and understand these concepts and actually learn these concepts rather than just memorize them. I know it's fun to, you know, talk with your friends and whatever, but once in a while try pay attention, try do all the activities, get everything done in class. I always got everything done in class. I'll try get onto extensions and things like that. Really push yourself in class, because again, I would just say, like, sometimes at the beginning of the year I would be like, oh, I'll just do this at home, like I don't need to work hard in class. It's easier if you work hard in class, because when you work hard in school, it means when you get back home, you don't have as much work to do. Why would you want to do more work at home, if you get what I mean? I don't know, maybe I just did this. If you kind of do this as well, let me know, because I don't know, it's a bad habit that I need to break out of, and I've managed to break out of. I really wish I just broke out of it sooner. Let me know if you find these tips useful, or if you've done your GCSEs and you have some tips for everyone else. Comment them down below, because I'm sure there's lots of mistakes that all of us made. There's way more. I could talk about it for hours if I wanted to. If you did enjoy this video, you might want to check out the video I posted last week where I spoke about some tips for year 11 for getting all 8s and 9s and, you know, doing well in your exams. That'll be linked somewhere up here. Check that out if you're interested. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a productive week.